Excellent. Okay. We're going to begin. I may have to admit some more people later, but we've got a good group today. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Again, I hope you received the email from me today. I added the new best practice guide for cheesemakers, and I added all of the IDF level 800 is what I call it, preparation guide. So you should have gotten a lot of information today on the email, as well as a link to the last meeting that we have. And this is how it's going to go. I'm going to, when I download the video, I'm going to email everybody the link to the previous video, and I'll add some sort of assignment in there as well to kind of keep you up and reading and keep you going. Hopefully last week you were able to read a little bit, study. If you haven't, get in that habit. This is your year of cheese. I can't make you study, I can't make you read, but I'm going to do my best to help get you motivated and get your desire up there to go over it. Also, I would start with the list of cheeses to know that was created by ACS. I would go ahead and start this week, and like every week, if you pick out 5 to 10 cheeses off that list and look them up and write flashcards about them, you're going to keep going and you're going to know more and more about cheese. I wouldn't do like 20 at a time because you're not going to remember that. Start with just a few and you'll be able to keep going. Excellent. Wonderful. And again, at any time, if you have questions or comments, please speak up. This is a fun group where we're all friends in cheeses. So today, I'm going to start out with the best practice guides to cheesemakers, and we're going to talk about.
Can I get a small hot chai with oatmeal?
Oh, we're going to get that. I'm not making a chai. Um, we're going to read the best practice guide for cheesemakers, and basically, we're going to talk about the ingredients of cheese making. So we're going to kind of start at the beginning, and I'm going to go back and forth. Start with the best practice guide, and then I'm going to go over to my 800 level packet and review some of that. My goal for this whole part of studying is I am reducing the knowledge that you're going to need to learn, meaning like there's so much stuff out there to study. I'm trying to help you by minimizing that, really directing you into the areas that you really need to be concerned about and the areas that you should study more than anything else. Trying to trim the fat, basically, and just offer the steak. So please do take notes as we go along. Some things I'm going to point out that are going to be, I know, on your test. And also, I think I started it last week. I also want you to learn how to be able to read through stuff and on your own be able to trim the nonsense, things that really don't matter, where you get to the heart of it. So I'm gonna be reading a lot like that, just so you know. Okay, so the 2025 version. All right, 1 second. All right. This, again, I studied this packet inside and out, and it helped me so much. That is one big tip I can give you. Anything created by the American Cheese Society is going to be worth more than probably what you're going to see out there. So I'm not going to read all the chapters here to you. I'm just trying not to make you dizzy as I get to. All right. A lot of lawyer stuff in here, huh? Getting to the glossary. So I would start here. And this is where we're going to start today, is going through this glossary. This is your flashcard information. These are things you need to know. I'm going to go through here. I'm going to read some things that are very important that I know you'll be asked in some way on the exam. And I want to tell you some things that you may not be, don't waste your time on that. Okay? 3A sanitary standards. Sanitary standards are important, but I don't think they're going to ask you so much about specific brands of sanitary standards. They're going to ask you things about like, making sure the hand washing sink is there, your feet are covered when you go visit a plant or a cheese maker. So I would like definitely read all these, but maybe not spend as much time on that. ATP, the primary molecule for energy transfer in living cells, that's a little too deep. Whenever I'm talking about the test or you listen to me, again, I want to make sure that everything that we find important kind of touches everybody in the cheese realm, whether you're a cheesemaker or a cheesemonger and everything in between. And although that Energy transfer in living cells is important. This is this is your base level. I think that's gonna be a little too much. Artisan cheese. You will absolutely be asked about artisan cheese, even though there are no quote unquote laws set in place right now for naming artisan cheese. This is a definition created by the American Cheese Society, so you bet your bottom dollar this will be on your test. Cheese that is produced primarily by hand in small batches with attention paid to the tradition of the cheesemaker's art, and thus using as little machination as possible in the production of the cheese. Artisan or artisanal cheeses may be made from all types of milk, including various flavors. The key there is the tradition of the cheesemaker's art. There's a lot of mechanization that's coming into line with cheese making, especially like automated milkers, uh, robots that go into the caves and flip cheese. So those aren't really a big deal, as far as like thinking it's not traditional. Those are things that help some of the mundane tasks. All right, but artisanal cheese on there. Certificate of analysis. That's like a maybe, man. COA, document issued by the supplier to the request of the receiving purchaser, which contains analytical test results for critical raw material, packaging material, and specification parameters. Small chances that could be on there. Just know a certificate of analysis. Cheese. All right, here's not trying to make a joke. Do you think cheese is important to those taken from the American Cheese Society and certified cheese professional? Yes, you will need to know the definition of cheese and how they're going to ask it. I don't know how specifically, um, but know that the Codex Alimentarius, the general standard of cheese, defines cheese as the ripened or unripened, soft, semi-hard, hard, or extra hard product which may be coated and in which the whey protein casein ratio does not exceed that of milk. So, and you're going to go through the basic of this. Clean in place, used throughout the food industry, closed systems like storage tanks. You could get asked that, but I think it's more about just knowing what it is. I think that would probably just be like in a question and not the question itself. Clean out of place. A cleaning and sanitation operation using wash tanks and manual cleaning for systems that are not clean in place. I would probably know that, but that's just really specific. The Code of Federal Regulations. Yes. Yes, you will need to know the Code of Federal Regulations. The codification of the general and permanent rules and regulations, sometimes called administrative law, published in the Federal Registry by the executive departments and agencies of the federal government of the United States. So just kind of understand what they do, but I would mark that one as a need to know. The Codex Alimentarius. I don't remember being asked about that on my test. That's all I can say about that. International food standards or guidelines and codes or practices that contribute to the safety and quality and fairness of internal food trade. It sounds important, but it wasn't on mine. Compliance policy guide. I would just read over that. The compliance policy guides together form a manual created by the FDA, Food and Drug Administration. The FDA, you have to know that is on there. My coworker's waiting to be let in. I'm sorry, I'm trying to. Got it. Thank you. Sorry about that. Had to let some more people into the room. I'll get going and I can't stop. Um, Corrective actions. That's pretty generic. A covered facility. A covered facility is a business that is required to have and implement a written food safety plan. That's important. All right, I'm just going to keep going like this through the glossary. Hang on with me. Critical control points, CCPs. Absolutely. 100%. Steps at which control can be applied and is essential to prevent or eliminate food safety hazard or reduce it an acceptable level. You're going to have to know if you own a business, if you're a cheesemaker, if you're creating any type of food, you are going to have to create critical control points for your HACCP plan. So no CCPs, absolutely. Culinary steam. Steam that's used in food processing. That's fun, but not as much. All right, these cultures, I would make notes about these, absolutely. Adjunct cultures, also known as secondary cultures, microorganisms added to milk to enhance flavor development, to provide protection against pathogens, or produce carbon dioxide for eye formation in cheese. That right there is a question. If you can kind of say, like, you know, what are the three primary functions of adjunct cultures? Number one, they enhance flavor and development. Uh, Two, provide protection against pathogens. And three, produce carbon dioxide for eye formation. That could be answer A. Answer B would be three different things, what they would call distractors. So that would definitely adjunct cultures. A starter culture. And cheese making starter cultures are used in cheese making to facilitate fermentation of lactose. That's the whole point of cheese, is to make it digestible for humans. It's the fermentation process. Starter culture is one of the four main ingredients in cheese. Starters are comprised of lactic acid bacteria that rely on sugar formation for energy. Starter cultures will ferment the lactose, which produces lactic acid and lowers the pH of milk. Starter cultures can be used as a primary starters or adjunct cultures. The following terms are used to indicate the optimum temperature for the family bacteria. These will also be on your exam. Mesophilic, mesophilic cultures. These can ferment lactose at temperatures as low as 50 to 113 degrees. So this is uh, mesophilic is cold. They thrive in a cooler environment. Thermophilic, we're talking with my last group, thinking of a thermos. A thermos can keep something hot. Is your warmer cultures. They grow at temperatures in the range of 68 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, with optimal growth around 98 to 113, and can survive temperatures up to 101. All right, I want to make sure we're hitting everybody up on mute for me. Um, so those you will absolutely need to know, mesophilic and thermophilic. And what they'll do, more than likely, they're probably going to throw the temperatures out there. Mesophilic cultures can ferment lactose at temperatures as low as A, 45 degrees, B, 50 degrees. So that's how I kind of would envision a question like that would go out about those. All right. Diminution, the removal of amine group from molecule resulting in the production of ammonia. That's a little too deep right there. Definitely good to know. It'll make you smarter if you know that, but I don't think it's going to. There we go. Sorry, my fingers are getting too fast. Environmental regulations. You need to know the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. The bad guys in the original Ghostbusters movie. The EPA has a responsibility to ensure that the environment and the health of the community are protected, both now and for the future generations. The proper management of dairy waste is essential to achieve that objective. So they're talking here about dairy waste. As the dairy industry has become more environmentally aware and committed to producing good environmental outcomes, alternative mechanisms have been developed in line with the government's desire to promote. So that's something good to know. Best practices, environmental management, definitely go through that. Environmentally aware dairy companies seeking a better environment and competitive advantage. These two things, these are the future. This is where we want to go. These are the individuals that we want to support, right? So I think that those two I definitely want to know. Then we're hitting on the other page. All right, go through. But again, all of you read all of this. Facility. A facility is a domestic or foreign facility that is required to register under Section 415 of the Federal. What they're not going to do is trick you up with a different register under section. Is it under Section 415 or 42-B11? They're not going to get into that. That's going to be a little too confusing for you. Facility registration. There was nothing specific on that about my exam. You will go through it as you read this packet. Facilities that process, store, or ship food for human or animal consumption are required to register with the FDA. All righty, here we go. This is a big one. I think all of you already know this, but farmstead cheese, 100% will be on your exam. Farmstead cheese. This is the upper echelon of cheese in our world. Uh, Cheese must be made with the milk from the farmer's own herd or flock on the farm where the animals are raised. Milk used in the production of farmstead cheese may not be obtained from any outside source. So, farmstead cheese. And generally, what that means too is, I like to always point out Andy Hatch. If you ever heard of Upland's Cheese in Wisconsin, Andy's an amazing fella, very nice. But he's got a small, I think about 64 or so cows, and they have a lot of land to run out and eat fresh grass. They live a wonderful life and they produce beautiful milk, and that's what we want to see in the cheese world, especially like moving forward. They make great, delicious, and they're usually going to be raw milk more often than not. The Food Code establishes practical science based guidance for mitigating risk factors that are known to cause or contribute to foodborne illness outbreaks associated with retail and food service establishments, and is an important part of the strengthening of our nation's food protection system. So, the Food Code we do need to know about, know that it exists. Getting sick, that's one thing about anything you read between the books, the IDF stuff I've handed out in this, any information that talks about prevention from foodborne illnesses or talks about what happens after you get a foodborne illness, that's going to be on your exam. It is very important for all of us in the cheese world to be aware how people can get sick and to be aware how we can prevent it. So that is of utmost importance. Anytime you see anything about E. coli, listeria, anything like that, you will be asked that. And you will be asked, like, what are the symptoms? How long does it take to get over it? You need to know the specifics. Beautiful. Page 13. Here we go. Food hygiene. Hygiene's important everywhere. Okay. Wash yourself, wash your hands. All conditions and measures necessary to ensure the safety and suitability of food at all stages of the product life cycle. Um, Food and Drug Administration, 1,000%. Oh my God, that's on your test. So the FDA, it's going to be somewhere, and they're probably just going to say the FDA, and that's where it's important. You need to any of these acronyms that you see highlighted in blue. I didn't highlight them. ACS did that, so that kind of stands out in my mind, and hopefully stands out in yours as well. The Food Safety Modernization Act, absolutely. FSMA is how we say it. Act passed in 2011, which claims to ensure the U.S. food supply is safe by shifting the focus from responding to contamination to preventing it. Who would have thunk it? So let's spend more time preventing sickness instead of just dealing with it. Um, Food Safety Inspection Services, absolutely. The Public Health Agency and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, you absolutely going to need to know about them. Responsible for ensuring that the nation's commercial supply of meat, poultry, and egg products is safe, wholesome, and correctly labeled and packaged. All right, good manufacturing practices. Yes, these are important. Highlight this in your world. Good manufacturing practices, or GMPs, has two meanings when used in the context of a food processing facility. Number one, you see how it can kind of be a question now? Good manufacturing practices have which two meanings in the context of food processing facility? A, it refers to the actual federal code sections that provides the regulation for both federal and state processing regulations that serve, that's a long one, that serve as cover facility construction, equipment, utensil selection, sanitation, personal hygiene, food handling, and the production of processing controls, as well as the second definition refers to a set of operating procedures and practices that require to confirm the guidelines recommended by agencies that control authorization. So know those. A hazard, biological, chemical, physical, or radiological agent in or condition of food with potential cause to adverse health effects. So they could ask this too. It's like, what are the correct hazards you see food with the potential of that could cause an adverse health effect? A, biological, chemical, physical, and radiological. B, biological, Candy. I can't think of good distractors right now, but that's an easy question. Hazard analysis critical control points. HACCP. You probably heard me say that before. If you're listening, then good. HACCP plans are 100% on your exam. Um, this is like that's the area I just had to study more. When I was working retail, because I would always been a cheesemonger or a cheese shop manager before I took my exam, so I had that very much just retail focus. We didn't have HACCP, like, as far as not creating, I wasn't creating a product. So I didn't have that cheesemaker hat on to know about all this. So I knew when I studied, hey, I know less about that. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on that. Um, so if you're in the similar realm as I am, where you really focus more on retail kind of side, HACCP plans are something to know more inside and out. A system which identifies, evaluates, and controls hazards which are significant for food safety. HACCP identifies critical control points. We talked about those earlier. You need to know what those are, critical control points, but does not recognize preventative controls. HACCP is the internally accepted science-based system for ensuring food safety controls. That's what you need to know. And anybody that produces cheese, you have to present your HACCP plan. You got to find out like what the critical control points are. Where in the production can something happen? If you've got an open lid and milk is flowing through it, that's a critical control point. Something could fall in. Anytime where somebody's hands touch the cheese or the product, that's a critical control point because you could have cross contamination. So those are just some examples of what they're talking about there. And then it gets deeper. Oh my God. Hazard analysis and risk-based preventative controls. Uh, HARP. You can't turn all acronyms into a word, sadly. But these requirements are similar to the hazard analysis critical control point requirements, which identify hazards that might arise due to specific foods or food ingredients in the food or due to various processing, manufacturing, packaging, or holding steps applied to the food. It doesn't distinguish CCPs from other types of preventative controls. Oh, okay. So here, make sure everybody's caught up. Everybody good? We're rolling on. Intentional adulteration rule. The intentional adulteration rule mitigation strategies is aimed at preventing intentional adulteration from acts intended to cause wide-scale harm to public health. Sadly, this is important in our world. We live in a day and age where there's some horrible people out there that like to do bad to a lot of people. So sometimes it's not just, oh, if an accident happens, if something falls in, you also have to have a plan and be prepared for somebody who intentionally wants to harm other people. So that's what that one's talking about. Labeling requirements. Labeling requirements is important to everybody at every step of the line that we have here in the cheese world. FDA's publication, Guidance for Industry, Food Labeling Guide, includes information on basic food labeling as well as information on nutrition facts, trans fats, and allergen labeling. Labeling not only is a marketing tool, but it informs the consumer of what they're purchasing. That could be like, that's oddly enough, that sounds like a fun question. Um, what is the purpose of labeling your food? It's not only a marketing tool, but it informs the consumer what they're purchasing. Ingredients of the food, the composition, including trans fats, caloric values, and other nutritional information, allergens, panel requirements and placement. So definitely know about that. And here, we're going to keep going. I know everybody's having just as much fun as I am. Got to take a little water break. Perfect. Lipolysis or lipolysis. You will need to know this. Yes, important. Mark this on your book. The biochemical pathway responsible for the catabolism triglycerol yielding glycerol of fatty acids. It has to do with fat. Whenever, and it also affects it's part of the cheese making process that when yielding these free fatty acids, it adds flavor. So just know that it is primarily to do with fat. Market withdrawal. Fraction. I would know that, but I don't remember anything about that on my exam. May, terminology and regulations, which provides. I don't know that one. That mesophilic cultures. We're reading this again. And but anytime you're reading something, especially out of the same packet, and you see a word over and over and over again, that means it is important to the body that made this document, which means it's probably going to be important to those who are making this exam. Because this, again, this is one packet put out by the ACS. Um, Mesophilic cultures, again, those are the colder ones. They can ferment lactose at temperatures as low as 50 to 113 degrees. Cold cultures, so to speak. Sure, we got everybody. Make sure you got your mute on for me, unless you want to talk to me. Um, Microbial load, the total number of bacteria and fungi in any given quality of water and food. We didn't really study that. That's not as much. But milk. Is milk important to everything we do in the cheese world? Absolutely. And again, whether you agree with it or not, the American Cheese Society, milk is a lacterial secretion practically free of colostrum obtained by the complete milking of one or more healthy cows, goat, or sheep, or water buffalo, a hoofed animal. Milk comes from a lactating mammary gland from an animal, not from nuts. If you disagree, go still take the test. You'll get the question wrong. But there we go. And again, while we're reading through here, the colostrum, that's another word. Anytime you're reading through something and something pops out that's important, like free of colostrum, and they didn't give any extra explanation there, look it up. Colostrum, of course, is the first milking from mama that goes to the baby, and it goes to the baby. We don't take that away. That's a milk that, because it has really high bacteria counts that help line the calf's stomach to help make it healthy and grow strong and be able to absorb nutrients. The colostrum, that'll probably be on your exam as well. Milkstone, the hard deposit of milk residue that accumulates on imperfectly cleansed dry dairy utensils. You may see that. Modified atmosphere packaging. Believe it or not, like this is important in our world. There were always cheesemakers are always looking for better ways to pack and store and even like ship cheese because as we all know, that putting plastic all over the cheese, it's not completely detrimental, but it's not ideal. But you get something like modified atmosphere packaging. This may be used to limit compression while providing an atmosphere containing reduced oxygen or anaerobic conditions. The process entails packaging the cheese under an inert gas such as nitrogen, carbon dioxide, or varying combinations of the two. I think that was a question on my exam. Under modified atmosphere packaging, what are the two inert gases primarily used? Nitrogen, carbon dioxide. I would mark that down. Uh, this creates an anaerobic condition for the cheese, but does not cause the cheese to become damaged in any way, such as crushed or smashed down. A common example of use of packaging of cheese shreds, curds, or Swiss style cheeses with eyes. I think I've experienced this more. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the cheese Valençay from France. It's a Loire Valley goat cheese, the little pyramids with the top cut off. So kind of like a squat pyramid. I remember my old job, we had caves where we would age cheese out and we would get Valençay young. So it was like a fresh cheese just with mold spores and ash on it. And it would be we call it flush packaged like this. So it would be have nitrous around it, but it saved it from getting squished and it kept the cheese from aging while it was coming overseas, like going on the boat for 2 weeks, being shipped over. It wouldn't age until you open the package and expose it to true oxygen. So it's pretty neat. So it's a way that you can get young cheese and age it yourself. Pretty cool. Um, all right, National Conference of Interstate Milk Shipments, HACCP. Uh, That's so many acronyms, right? Oh my God. NCIMS, or I don't want to say anything. The profit organization made up of persons from various aspects of the dairy industry. I don't remember much about that specific group on my exam. HACCP, yes. All right. Pasteurization, a process named after French scientist Louis Pasteur. That could be a question in and of itself. Like who is credited with creating the pasteurization? And it could be Louis Pasteur or other people, but Louis would be the ample answer. It applies to the heat to destroy pathogens in food. For the dairy industry, the terms pasteurization, pasteurized, and similar terms mean the process of heating every particle of milk or milk product in properly designated and operated equipment to one of the approved temperatures. You will get asked about this. Yes. So these are, man, you probably already got 25 questions on the exam just from this right here. Um, High temperature, short time. This is on your exam. You will get asked about this. You will. It ensures that milk has been heated to a minimum of 161 degrees Fahrenheit or 71.6 degrees Celsius for 15 seconds. You have to be that specific. My exam, I think it was literally asked like, high temperature, short time is a legal pasteurization step which ensures milk is heated to a minimum of, and it gave you four different temperatures. And I had to pick the right one. What they're not going to do is they're not going to mix up the Fahrenheit and Celsius to catch you. The Fahrenheit and Celsius will always match. Even if the Fahrenheit is wrong and not the right answer, the Celsius number is still going to correspond to that Fahrenheit. So don't worry about them tricking you like that. You just need to remember 161 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 seconds. That's what's important. Low temperature. Low temperature long time is 145 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes. You need to remember that. And it's also known as vat pasteurization. Excellent. Everybody hanging in with me? You're terribly bored. I'm trying to be very exciting when I read this. Uh, but I'm giving you so much help, I promise. These are things you want to look up and study and read over again and again. Once you get these in your head, it's all about the definitions. Once you get it in your head, man, you're going to be a step above, I promise. Pasteurized milk ordinance, grade A. Yes, this is on your exam. You'll get at least one question about this. A model milk regulation used by states to govern the processing, packaging, and sale of grade A milk and milk products, including buttermilk and buttermilk products, whey and whey products, and condensed and dry milk. The PMO only covers grade A fluid milk. PMO only covers grade A fluid milk. So here, I'm not going to read every single thing to you. I want you to do some of the work. But I would also look up grade A. What is grade A milk? That is that is highly likely to be on your exam. Okay, because there's a lot of information out there about it. Excellent. Pasteurized milk grade B, Bravo, also known as manufacturing milk. It can only be used in the production of dairy products such as cheese, butter, and non-fat dry milk, and is not regulated by the PMO. Pest management product. Any lure, bait, or monitoring product, the pesticide, you're probably not going to get asked that. It is important. Pest management is important to all of us in every walk of life. But I think with only 150 questions being able to be asked, that's probably not going to be one of them. Plant, a food manufacturing facility. You're not going to get asked about that. It may be in there. Potable, potable water that is fit to say that is, excuse me, water that is fit and safe to be consumed by humans with low risk of immediate long-term harm. Potable, my favorite type of water. Um, so hopefully you know that. You're not going to get asked what does potable mean. Let's see. Prerequisite programs. World Health Organization defines prerequisite programs as practices and conditions needed prior to and during the implementation of HACCP. PRPs, that's really specific. HACCP, they're going to ask you about, but probably only like maybe four, maybe five questions. Again, so much to ask about and only 150 ways to get that done. So that one, I don't remember prerequisite programs being specifically asked about. It could be though. Preventative controls. Yes, this is more likely on there. Reasonable and appropriate procedures, practices, and processes that a person knowledgeable about the safety of food would employ to significantly minimize or prevent hazards. Preventative controls for human food rule. Specific component of the Food Safety Modernization Act that affects small producers. The rule was finalized. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that one as much. Proteolysis, the breakdown of proteins. That's what you need to remember. You break down lipolysis is fat. Proteolysis is proteins. Similar compounds such as peptides or amino acids. So those are the best. That is kind of how they're going to ask you more than likely is proteolysis is the breakdown of A, fats, B, proteins, C, amino acids, D, casein. They'll go through there. The best answer there is going to be proteins. All right. Psychrophilic microorganisms, cold tolerant bacteria. These are not used as starters in cheese making. These bacteria are capable of growth temperatures as low as 44 degrees. Ooh, that's cold. With an optimal range of 59 to 68. Let's see, they can form biofilms. I would write the word biofilm down because those are bacteria growth. And I mean, this is good to know, but I don't know if that's on your exam. I don't know. Qualified facilities. One question is probably going to get asked in this realm. No food facility is an exempt from responsibility to produce safe food, but those that have both gross and annual sales less than $500,000 annually and sell the majority of their food directly to consumers or grocery stores or institutions may be deemed or qualified for less burdensome requirements. That's the main thing you need to know. They do classify like a very small business. I think that was on my test. The term very small business, less than 1 million in annual gross sales of human food based on average of 3 preceding years. So I would know a little bit about those. All right. Qualified individuals. It's all I've ever want to be called my whole life. It's a qualified individual. It's defined as someone who has the education, the training, the experience, or combination thereof necessarily to manufacture, process. You're not going to get asked about qualified individuals. That's fine. Ooh, but you will get asked about a recall. Absolutely, you're going to get asked about recalls. That is something that is tremendous. That is huge in our industry. When you turn on the news, like recently, there's been recalls on, sadly, a lot of cheese products from around the country. If you watch your local news, if you're old like me and like your local news team in the evening, you'll get to see a lot of this. Removal of distributed food products from commerce when there is a reason to believe that such products are alterated or misbranded under the provisions of the applicable state and federal laws. Recall does not include a market withdrawal or a stock recovery. Recalls are most always voluntary based on a company's discovering a problem and recalling the product on its own. That's your key. A recall is like saying Nathan's cheese. I'm making cheese and I think, oh man, somebody lost a fingernail one day in between lot A and lot C. I'm going to tell people to give me my product back. And that's a voluntary recall. Records. Everybody keeps records. Records are important. Um, you may get one question about records. Um, Financial records, 3 years. You need to keep everything for 3 years. I think that's the highlight of that. Regulators, mount up. Sorry, that's an old joke. Along with the federal regulations, the state, county, and city have the authority to add to requirements. Um, they're not going to ask you specifically about regulators. Research and development, R&D. That's fun to think about, but you're not going to get much about that. Reddit. Yes, absolutely. Reddit is important. A generic term used to the reference enzymes that capable of altering casein proteins in a specific way to initiate coagulation. Rennet helps coagulation. The chymosin is the key enzyme found in animal rennet. Oh God, that's like a whole nother question. What is the key enzyme found in animal rennet? A, chymosin. B, proteolysis. C, whatever. But chymosin, absolutely know that. Rennets can also be used to separate milk into solid curds used for cheese making in liquid whey. Calf rennet is the most widely used animal rennet in cheese making. Another question that could be, what is the most widely used rennet in cheese making? Calf rennet, ewe rennet, kid rennet, or vegetable rennet. They can ask you that. Calf, so cow. And I would say that is due to more cows. We use a lot more cows in cheese making than anything else. It gives us more calves. In addition to the chymosin, animal rennet contains other important enzymes such as pepsin and lipase. Other types of rennet include microbial, uh, recombinant, and vegetable rennet. So those are all the types of rennet that you need to know about. That one little paragraph, you can get almost 5 questions out of that. So I would definitely go over that again and again. Rodent bait station. It's important. They're not going to ask you about a rodent bait station. Root cause analysis. Drill down the capability or troubleshooting of the source of the quality problem with the intent. Yeah, they're probably not going to ask you about that specifically. Sanitation standard operating procedures. Yeah, you may get one question about this. Written procedures that an establishment develops and implements to prevent direct contamination or alteration of product. Shall and may. You're not going to need to know that. Whatever. Small business. We mentioned that. Small business is defines FSMA defines small business as a business employing fewer than 500 full-time people. And I think you see how I kind of breezed over the parenthesis things. They're there, but that's not the meat of the matter. That's not they're not going to try to like go over and like instead of U.S. National Archives 2025A, they're going to say National Archives 2015 Bravo. They're not going to trick you up with that. Just know that it is employing fewer than 500 full-time employees. Somatic cell count. Oh, my good friends in Des Moines know how important that is. Somatic cell count is on your test. Boom, 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 boom. You will get asked about that. A majority of somatic cells are white blood cells. They're not going to ask you about leukocytes. I'm probably saying that wrong, but they're white blood cells, which become present in an increasing number of milk, usually as an immune response to a mastitis causing pathogen. Does anybody out there know what mastitis is? That's on your exam. Anybody want to chat or give a word? Mastitis.
It, it's an infection?
Yes, it is an infection of the udder. Absolutely. I'm going to do that more often and ask you guys more questions instead of me just telling so many things. But mastitis is an infection of the udder. It's very common because cows, whether lying down on a bed, they could be out in the mud, they could get fecal matter around the udder. It's a dirty world out in the field and in a barn. And without cleaning those udders and taking care of those cows, an infection happens, and that infection could contaminate your milk and get people sick. So mastitis, ooh, you need to know that. And really, that's what the somatic cell count is going for, to see if it's infected. So if you keep track of your somatic cell counts, if there is a lovely lady cow out there that does have mastitis, all they do is they just pull her from the herd. They separate her out. She gets usually her own little pen, and she's given antibiotics. Oh no, antibiotics. Yes. Antibiotics, if you don't give a cow that's sick their antibiotics, they'll probably just die. And that's not wanted. We don't want antibiotic milk, but sometimes a cow that's sick needs to be given medication so she can then become well. And she's milked the whole time, so her udder doesn't expand too much, but they discard that milk. Any milk that has antibiotic residue in it is thrown away. Once that cow is healthy and all the antibiotics have flushed through her system and there's none tracing in her milk, she may then join back into the herd to become a milk producing sweet lady. But just know that, because it's branded out there a lot. It's like, oh, no antibiotic chicken, no antibiotic this. Like, well, you just let them die. Like, I don't want to eat it when they're getting medicated, but you got to take care of your animals. And that came from a tour I had to a dairy farm. I've heard it from 3 different dairy farmers who all say the same thing. You got to take care of those babies. But know your somatic cell count. And you will actually need to know, it's not in here right now, but you'll need to know the numbers of acceptable somatic cell count numbers for cow, goat, and sheep. I think it's 500,000 for cow and sheep and 1 million for goat. But there's a chart later on in this book about it. But know those specifications, any criteria. We don't need to know that. You know that. Specialty cheese, yes, you'll need to know that. So specialty cheese, artisan cheese, farmstead cheese, all 3 of those in some way will be on your exam because the American Cheese Society wrote these definitions. A cheese of limited production made with particular attention paid to natural flavor and texture profiles. That's specialty cheese. That's what we all deal with. Artisan is when you go primarily by hand. And farmstead is when it comes from one location. And basically you're stepping up in price. Okay. Supplier assurance. Probably, but not as much. Tuberculosis accredited herd. When herds have passed at least 2 consecutive annual tests and have no other evidence of bovine tuberculosis to meet the standard of USDA. That could be on there. That could be. I don't remember that on mine, but that could be. Tempered water, mixing cold water with hot water to keep the water temperature fixed at a more moderate temperature. That sounds pretty easy. All right, we're getting through here. I promise this is helping you out. If y'all are listening and taking notes, this is helping you out. Thermalization, also known as thermalization sub-pasteurization, involves heating milk to 140 degrees to 150 degrees for 15 to 30 seconds before the start of cheese making. This process reduces the number of microorganisms in milk, but the FDA still considers it raw milk. I got to ask a question about that on my exam in some way, but thermalization, because it's not pasteurized, it's still considered raw. Thermophilic cultures. We talked about that before. It's mentioned again. Thermophilic. This is when it handles high temperatures. High temperatures. And know those temperature ranges. Thermodoric, a bacteria that can survive pasteurization process in varying extents. Probably good to know. The U.S. States Department of Agriculture, the USDA. Yes. You need to know the USDA. They ensure the safety of meat, poultry, and processed egg products, both domestically and from countries approved to export to the United States. The Agricultural Marketing Service directs the USDA to develop programs that will provide and facilitate the marketing of agricultural products. Good to know. It's important, but I don't know how specific they're going to get with that. Very small business. A business including any subsidies averaging less than $1 million. Zoonosis and any infectious disease that can be transmitted from non-human animals, both wild and domestic, to humans, or from humans to non-human animals. The latter is sometimes called reverse. All right. Woo, okay. So we spent a good time there. How does everybody feel about those definitions? I know that it may come across a little elementary to kind of read it to you like that, but hopefully you see and you're getting the aspect of what's important, what you need to spend time on, and things that you don't need to spend as much time on. And so what I'm going to do for the next few more minutes, we're not going to quite reach an hour and a half today, but I'm going to get you started on this section 2, milk handling and production. And again, the way I'm going to read it to you is I want to point out how to read this and pick out the vital information and understand how that could be written into a question. All right. When milk leaves a healthy udder of an animal, it is relatively free from bacteria. Um, that could be a question. That's a very important, that's a fact. Relatively free of bacteria. They could ask you that. When milk leaves a healthy udder of an animal, A, it is relatively free from bacteria. B, you need to pasteurize and remove all the bacteria. All that could be that. All that could be asked. Some contamination occurs from the udder, milking environment, and the equipment. Oh my God, that's like a whole other question. Where, where are you most likely to have contamination of your milk? From the udder, from the milking environment, and the equipment. Highlight that as well. The pasteurized milk ordinance, bacterial limit for grade A milk. Let's see, there's a lot of bacterial milk is 100,000 CFUs per milliliter, whereas grade B milk, that's good. That may be really specific. I'd be surprised if they get down to this nitty gritty in here. All right. Poor barn hygiene and poor milking procedures can lead to contamination of milk by enteric pathogens such as E. coli, Salmonella, Listeria, Yersinia, and Campylobacter. That, boom. I would know that for sure. Poor barn hygiene and poor milking procedures. That's what leads to all this. Okay. In addition to microbiological hazards, milk is considered adulterated if it contains a foreign substance, foreign material, objectionable odors, and an abnormal appearance or consistency. That was on my test. Oh my God. I remember that. So that is an easy way to ask a question. Like, what is milk is considered adulterated if it contains A, foreign substance with foreign material, objectionable odors, or abnormal appearance and consistency. Oh, that's a perfect way to ask a question. Safe levels and tolerance include limits, including maximum residue limits, exist for chemical contaminants such as antibiotics, pesticides, and herbicides, and cleaning solutions. That's good to know, but I think that's getting a little specific. Design of farm buildings. And I know that may not be as important to all of us as we may think, but the farm buildings is where I know the least about. You know, I'm a talker and a cheesemonger, not a farmer. So I made sure I paid more attention to this section because I just knew less about it. So I'm going to leave you guys. All right, so let's see. The dairy barn and farm buildings have a direct impact on the production of good quality milk. That's pretty standard. The dairy barn and farm buildings have a direct impact on the production of good quality milk. On-farm processing facilities must take extra precautions to prevent cross-contamination from the farm. Livestock workers, as well as other farm employees, should not be allowed to enter the processing plant without showering and a complete change of clothes. That's that hygiene that we've been talking about. And could be a question. I say with the design of farm buildings, you may get 2, maybe 3 questions out of this. But here's another thing. All methods of footwear control should include a sanitation step, such as walking through a sanitary foot bath, foam, or crystals. I think they may get that specific. Have any of you ever been to a facility where you had to like get your, you put on your feet? So think about that process. And I know it sounds a little mundane, but it shows the level of importance that you have to visit this and how clean it needs to be. And plus, that could be a question. You got sanitary foam bath, foam, or crystals. Anytime I see something like two or three things included into the sentence like that, that's easily turned into a question. All right. The strict policy is needed in order to prevent pathogenic bacteria commonly found on farms from getting to the processing plant. And that's why. So this is going to give you your why. And like G.I. Joe always said, knowing is half the battle. Let's see. So I would just make sure you have all of that covered and ready to go. Walls, floors, and ceilings. Oh my. Walls should be constructed of smooth, non-toxic. Read through this. I'm not going to read this to you on our study group, but I think once you go over this once, let it stick in your head, and that's about as much as you need to go. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I would read this entire booklet, the best practice guide for cheesemakers. This is something, where I called some other books before resources, right? This is a resource, but I would read it from front to back. Just throwing that out there. It's going to help you. But know all about this, floors and drains. And again, I think once you read over this once, it's going to be good. That'll be good enough for you on that instance. Animal housing must have good ventilation, adequate lighting, and be kept in good repair, free of rodents, birds. Boom, that is a question. Animal housing. This is something you go into. It's like where the animals live and how they're treated does affect the milk. The milk affects us all when we're going into our cheese world. And you see how you have good ventilation, adequate lighting, be kept in good repair, free of rodents and birds, and easily cleanable. Boom, boom, boom. That's a fact. And things like that are written in factual form, easily formed into a question. Excellent. Buildings should be designed to prevent cross-contamination between animal houses and milk production areas. That's generic. Again, some of this you're going to read through. That's just common sense. Design should take into account future expansions of plans, if any. Designing farm buildings with future expansion in mind makes good sense. I think you could get asked something like that. Most farmers find that after a while, the original structures are too small for future needs and/or the needs of the business to grow. So that's just good business practices. And if you go back to the list, business practices is at least 25 questions. So that goes into a business practice. Excellent. Constructed and maintain. Know that everything gets hosed down and can get washed. Definitely read over all this. Just because I'm not doesn't mean you shouldn't. Milking house versus a milking parlor. This is good to know. The milk house is an enclosed facility separate from the milking barn or parlor where the milk is cooled or stored. It must be constructed in such a manner as to protect the milk supply from contamination. So milking house, that's where the milk lives. Okay, that's where it's stored and cooled down. The milking parlor should be constructed for adequate drainage and ease of cleaning. Milk parlor walls should be lightly colored, smooth, water resistant, and capable of withstanding pressurized cleaning. Glazed block tile, plastic fiberglass sheet, sealed concrete block, or poured concrete can all be used. So the milking parlor are where the animals are milked. That's where, so all this is leading up to the fact that, you got to clean up behind these ladies. It's a messy world, dairy farming. They poop and pee pee a lot. And you got to make sure that everything you have around, you're able to clean it easily to prevent cross contamination. Traffic flow. Traffic flow is important. Read over that. Animal health. Animal health is more important. Animals infected with pathogens can produce milk that contains human pathogens such as salmonella. That is a fact, and I would highlight that. It's important to monitor animal health and maintain a vaccination program under veterinary supervision. Absolutely. The major causative agents of mastitis are not considered human pathogens. The streptococcus is going to be mastitis, so know that. The presence of foodborne pathogens in milk is due to direct contact with contaminated sources in the dairy farm environment and to the secretion from the udder of an infected animal. All of this, oh my God, what am I doing here? All of that is highly important for you. Outbreaks of disease in humans have been traced to the consumption of unpasteurized milk and consumption of several types of cheeses manufactured from unpasteurized milk. All that's true. You need to know what can happen when you consume raw milk. Where we at the American Cheese Society, those of us who volunteer and love our world, we promote raw milk cheeses, but we're not necessarily going to promote to drink raw milk. We want everybody to be safe, and if you got to know the farm, know how safe their sanitation practices are before you consume raw milk. So I'm always going to suggest you drink pasteurized milk unless you really know the source or if you're prepared to get sick. Um, Raw milk cheeses are much safer to eat than raw milk, liquid milk is to drink. Milking animals that appear to be producing abnormal milk or have clinical or subclinical mastitis in one or more quarters must be milked last or with a separate equipment, and their milk must be discarded. You need to know that, and I mentioned that earlier. That's what I mean by usually at that time is when they're given antibiotics. They're separated from the herd. They've got their own little area, and they're milked, and that milk is tested and discarded until that infection is over, and that lady is healthy again, and the milk is clean. All righty. And again, just all this is if it's given antibiotics, must be milked last or with separate equipment. Yes, that's just, and the milk should be discarded. Everything there. Remember all that. Beautiful. Somatic cell count is one tool used to evaluate the condition of the animal's health. Increased somatic cell counts indicates increased inflammation, very likely caused by an inflammatory infection. I know we're touching on that a lot, but you will get mad. I'm trying to drill it in your head. Mastitis, you're going to get asked about it. It's there. I'll run into some of y'all after the test and y'all going, well, Nathan, you sure were right. I hope to be anyway. Regular bulk. Here we go. The somatic cell count. This graph. Know it, love it, live it. So I was wrong when I said 500. It's 750,000 permitted somatic cell counts per milliliter. Cows and sheep, 750,000. A goat is 1,500,000. I misspoke earlier. Please use this graph here. And yes, you're going to get asked this 100%. I know it in my heart and in my bones. So know that. That's pretty easy to remember though, but that should be a card for you. I would write that into a flashcard. Okay, I'm just going to keep going down. As the somatic cell counts increase, the bacterial count of the milk may also increase. Causative organisms of mastitis include, so know all this. Campylobacter, like you need to know every bit of those. I hate to say it, like I had to, sometimes you're going to get, your streptococcus with your E. coli or Campylobacter. All that you can get confused with that. I do. I was educated in Alabama, so sometimes I got to study harder than more people. But this can really bog you down. So take your time to get to know those. You will get asked about those. Boom, boom, boom. Yes. Okay. In addition to the potential of actual impacts on human and animal health, inflammation in the mammary gland can affect the cheese made from that milk. We're just saying this over and over again. That's how important it is. Change in milk consumption due to the infection can lead to rapid proteolysis and lipolysis, along with reduced lactose concentration and increased sodium and chloride concentrations. That could be a question right there. Whoop. So I would highlight all of that. Excellent. Trying to make sure I can highlight it anyway. There we go. Sorry, I had to get my highlighter working. Milking animal health and cleanliness and animals in animals' environments influences animal hygiene. The cleanliness of the milking animal is directly related to the animal health and the prevention of pathogen organisms containing the milk. That, highlight that. All right. These include environmental mastitis pathogens from feces and the environment. Not the most fun word, feces, but it's important to us because it contains a lot of bad things that we don't need in our body. All right, keep reading over that. And here, definitely read this. This is one of those things, as far as like farm premises adjacent to the milking barn, parlor, and milk house need to be kept free of contamination and debris. That should be a given. So let's keep going down. All right, bedding sources. Here we go. This is important. Well, let me go back up. Excessive dirt, right here. Excessive dirt or manure in loafing areas and muddy environments make it easier for the bacteria to contaminate teats and subsequently contaminate milk or enter the teat canal. They can then travel into the mammary gland and establish an infection, causing an inflammatory response that can destroy milk secreting cells and release somatic cells, as previously discussed. Removing udder hair can make further improvements on animal cleanliness. That sounds like fun. Bedding sources that are clean, dry, and comfortable will minimize pathogen growth. What style of bedding can minimize pathogen growth? Clean, dry, and comfortable. Oh my God, it's just like my baby. It's all babies want too. And full. They won't be full. Um, Water troughs should not be located near bedding areas as they can lead to wet soiled areas due to increased traffic and leaks. Let's keep going. When rubber filled mattresses are used for cushioning stalls, it's important to bed the stalls in a manner that ensure that they remain dry. What I've seen before, there are rubber filled mattresses for the cows that a farmer could choose to have, which creates some comfort. But also, a lot of farmers can use sand. Like when I went to Marique Gouda, I got to see them. The cows are living in the barn, but they have a nice sand base that they can snuggle in and get comfortable. And they can keep it dry, basically, and then refill it with sand as they need. Okay. Animals should be readily identifiable with corresponding health records that include documentation of illness, treatments, and withholding times. I see that as a question. Excellent. We're going to wrap up the bottom of this page before we head out to our weekend plans. Milking procedures. Pre-milking preparation is a balance between speed and efficiency. The completion of the required steps to clean udders and stimulate milk letdown. Teat end disinfections is important in reducing the number of bacteria. It is well established that throughout teat end disinfection can reduce teat surface bacteria by 75%. That is good to know. Meaning you got to, like, if you've ever been able to go to a milking parlor, hopefully if you haven't, it is helpful to be able to see it, but you'll see however the cows are milked, there's usually a towel with a cleaning solution. So the teats are rubbed down before the milkers are attached. Got to keep it clean, people. If animals are clean, teats can be disinfected by pre-dipping without additional washing. Let's see. I think for the rest of that, it's just going to be up to you all reading through there. Okay. Any questions so far? I hope that wasn't terribly boring for you. I know I didn't mean to just sit here and read. Some of the trainings we're going to have, it's going to flow like this. Some are going to be me giving PowerPoints, and then we'll have a couple of guest speakers pop in from time to time. So I try to have just a different array of studying going on just to help you out. Again, here, my purpose for reading through this was hopefully to help lead you to see what's important when reading through these packets and how that can be turned into a question. Excellent. Well, we're going to get this recording posted as soon as possible. I will see you again in 2 weeks. Until then, I suggest within 2 weeks you should read this packet as much as you can. And that's going to help you out a great deal. Also, I would start right now by getting anywhere from 5 to 10, I mentioned it before, of the cheeses to know, and start looking them up in the Oxford Companion to Cheese and writing it about them. The things you'll need to know about those cheeses are where they're from. USA, if they're from the USA, what state? Are they from Europe? From Europe, what country? What province? Also know the milk type, raw or pasteurized, breed of cows or breed of animals is also important, especially for the really popular ones like Comté. And Comté is a big contributor to or a sponsor for ACS. So do you think there's a chance that they'll be asked about on the test? Yes. We still live in a business real world. But Comté, like the Montelabriard and Seminole cows, you need to know that. Know how long the cheeses have to be aged and whether it's protected or not. So those are some things to help you get jump started. As always, please reach out to me if you have any questions, concerns, or comments. I'm happy to help you out. My goal here is to help you study. I'm not giving you answers to the test. I'm hopefully here to guide you to study to the best of your ability. But if you need me, please know I'm always here for you. All right. So with that, I hope you need. Oh, wait, I got some chats. Is there anybody? That sounds about right. Uh-oh. Yes. So Bill Mackey asked, does GFI have a record of HACCP plans? We cut cheese. We have a cheese cutting facility. So yes, we do. Other than that, like I don't work on those, but I work on a lot of standard operating procedures. Perfect. Well, anything else, guys? Have a great weekend. Keep studying, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thank you.